it's time now to preview the race officially at Las Vegas. They race 2 times a year. And this segment is brought to you by PlaybookSports.com. And again, please check out the Playbook Experts YouTube channel, where we are, as I mentioned before, we are posting our just a section, actually just a segment every week. We post this on the Playbook Experts YouTube channel. All right, now, Las Vegas, as I mentioned, 2 races a year. 9 of the last 12 winners have started in the top 10. 6 of the last 12, so 50% in the top 5. But how about this? This is the most interesting. No pole sitter winners since 2009, which was Kyle Busch, and it's the only time ever a pole sitter has won at Las Vegas. They've been racing there since 1998. How strange is that?
That is bizarre. And especially for a track over the years where track position was key. And the pole sitter has the best track position of anybody to start the day off. And they only won once. So I thought that was staggering. So it doesn't bode well to whoever wins the pole.
Yeah, unless it's Kyle.
Sorry. Unless it's Kyle, then he's the only one that's done it. And he's probably the best driver and best car out there right now. So that would be an intriguing storyline going into Sunday. But yeah, it just seems, and we talked about this in the past for some of these tracks, that qualifying is about short run speed. You're obviously got to make 1 lap. The race is 267 laps. You got to be good over the course of a run. In Vegas, while we've had late race restarts, you've also had long runs before you got to that point. So some of these guys that might have good short run speed have fallen way back and don't have the track position to make up for it with the late caution. So yeah, that's the kind of battle you're fighting, which is, I think, I like this, the new P&Q, they call it, practice and qualifying sessions, because they're so short. There's not much you really can do to change the car, so you kind of are qualifying what you brought, and then you adjust as the race goes on. So that's why you're seeing more parity as far as starting positions, guys outside the top 10 winning, because they're qualifying a race car. They're like, hey, I don't care about where I start. I'm going to charge on race day, where these guys that might have, hey, I'm going to go for track position early, but my car may not handle well early, and you have those comers and goers, which in turn makes a better race for us to watch.
Well, it can't just be a coincidence that we had the different car, but we've also had the different practice rules. So you don't have this hours upon hours of practice time, as you've mentioned quite a bit, especially last year, which clearly helps the more dominant teams.
Well, you got to look at last weekend. Kyle Larson had one of the faster cars. I mean, he was 15, 16 laps down, and he was up there battling with those guys. He was staying out of the leader's way, but he never fell another lap down. In fact, I think he made a couple laps up. Really strong. His lap times are really strong. In fact, the last stage, they were showing he had the fastest car by 3 seconds in the end. He was that good. But this is where the practice and qualifying or lack thereof helps, because the issue that happened would have crept up in the practice that was rained out.
Yep, good point.
They would have had time to rectify it, which therefore you go into the race. That car that was that good would not have had the issues and probably would have, dare I say, a Homestead ran away level for the win.
Well, he would have started in the back possibly.
More than likely, because he probably wouldn't have qualified. But
that would have been
been fun to watch come through. And he probably could have dominated in the end. So that's where this kind of changes, because these issues or these setups or things that they wish they had more time on, they don't, and they have to deal with it during the race, where, as I always said, you give these big multi-million-dollar teams with unlimited budget time to 3 practice sessions to figure it out.
Forget it.
They're going to have it figured out before they get in the race. So yeah.
Glad that's it. That's good for us.
Yep.
By the way, Ford has won 5 out of the last 10, including Logano in October, even though Chevy's won 3 out of the last 5. So I guess Toyota is the odd man out, but they're not in bad shape. So really you can't discount any of the manufacturers this week. And there have been 5 different driver winners, 5 straight different driver winners. Okay, so no CJ picks this week because of the fact that, as we mentioned, he's on vacation. Well, it is vacation. And he will be back in a couple weeks, but he'll make the picks, and we'll post them up on racereviewonline.net before the race, whenever that's going to be. So on the show, at least this week, not sure about next week, but at least this week, it's just your picks and my picks. And so we both picked 4 drivers the same. And 3 were top contenders, and 1 was a long shot.
Then Kyle? You on the Kyle train? Okay. The other Kyle? Both Kyles?
No.
No, just Busch. Then I'm going to say it's got to be those Toyota groupings that are all like 10 and 12 to 1. Hamlin.
Yes.
So 2 more. Bell?
No.
Truex?
No.
Reddick. Reddick's 15 to 1. You didn't go Reddick? No. Okay. I'm trying to look at my list here. Who's between them? I would definitely say Bowman.
No.
Was one of the picks. Oh. Shocking.
All those drivers were on my list. But I kind of I went a certain strategy and Chastain, and now the long shot.
Trying to think of who my deeper one was.
Yeah, you don't have any long shots, so it should be easy.
No, I ran out of. Yeah, I'd say it's either Bubba.
Yes.
Okay, so I knew it had to be one of him or Suarez.
Yeah.
That I ran out of money for. Yep.
So yeah, and this is going to be. I tell you what, I would be surprised in a way if we actually made some money on this race, because this is going to be so hard. There's just so many good drivers that are good at this track.
Yes.
And even the young drivers who are just starting to race here are good at this track. So it's going to be really hard. That's why all the drivers you were saying that I was saying no, I was going to use them, but I went a different strategy. Instead of doing like 310 or 440s, 410s for 40, I basically went like 2 for 20. Or, so I kind of did more quality than quantity, if you want to use that kind of term. Not exactly, but all right, let's start with Kyle. And I came this close to not taking him because of the 6 to 1. I was like, the 6 to 1. I don't want to do that, but that's the reason I dropped Larson, because I couldn't take them both, or at least that's the strategy I went with. So it was Kyle Busch or Kyle Larson, and I went with the guy that's hotter right now and that has just as good, if not better, history at this racetrack. So in that respect, I think it was pretty easy for me to make the decision if I had to make the decision, which I did. So you took them both. Who would you... I can't really guess because Kyle was a little less of a number. So if you had to pick one of them, which way would you go?
Busch, just because the car that he's in was really good there last year. Tyler Reddick was in that car. And Tyler Reddick, let me go to Tyler Reddick here. He had 3 consecutive top 10 finishes, 7th is being one of them in this race last year. He was 6th in the fall. He left 32 laps in that October race. But I also look at Kansas. If you want a light track to kind of look at comparisons, look to Kansas. Very similar tracks that you can kind of use. Last year showed if you were good at one, you were good at the other, and vice versa. So you look at Kansas. Reddick was outside of top 30 in both of those races, but he crashed while leading with tire issues also in both. So I kind of look at that as, all right, well, he did the same thing last week in Fontana while leading and had an issue with a tire. Kyle won. Well, Kyle mentioned that they took some things from his style and from last year's style with Reddick and merged them into one, and look at how good he did. So don't you kind of think they're going to do that again at this race? And that's like, he's got all the momentum, like you said. And Larson's not, he's got 2 consecutive top 2 finishes in the spring race. He won in 2021. He's had fast race cars, but he doesn't enter as hot. He does have speed.
That's the thing.
That's why I just couldn't differentiate between the two. As betting, like, I want one of them. I feel like one of them is going to win, so I might as well just take them both. But if I had to side with one or the other, and you got to look, Kyle coming into the fall race last year. So the last time they raced there he was 15 to 1, and they got him all the way down to 6 to 1 in a car for a team that hasn't won a championship since 1994.
Big difference.
To me, that was saying a lot. And last year, Tyler Reddick in the same car was 8 to 1. So they even have Kyle 2 spots lower than that. So they're really saying something here with him. So I would side his direction more than Larson, but either are strong.
Yeah, keeping in mind, Kyle, again, we referenced the pole win in 09, the only win for Kyle at this racetrack, which this is Las Vegas. This is his track. This is where we would like to win more than anywhere. Last 5, third, fourth, third, sixth. That's pretty damn good. Led 49 laps last year, but only 57 laps the last 7 races. I'm not worried too much about that because of the fact that he was strong last year with a different car, even though, see, that is a tricky thing that we're going to have to keep reminding ourselves and the viewers about the different cars, especially the different seats for Kyle Busch and for Reddick. For me, I think it works against Reddick. I kind of put it against him, which is why I didn't pick him this week, because I want to see some results first. Now that he's in a different car with a different team. Kyle, he's a Hall of Famer. He's one of the best ever. He could pick things up pretty quickly, and he's already done that. So I'm not worried about Kyle, and I don't really look too much into that, except, like you were saying, maybe for bonuses. Like, oh, that's a bonus. Look at the car he's in. That was strong last year. Speaking of RCR, I also put money on Dylan. I put a couple of bucks on Dylan as Kyle's teammate at 50-1 because he has 9 top 15s in his last 12 at Vegas, including 4 straight. And in the Xfinity Series, dominant. 6 top 10s, 4 top 5s in a win, and 7 Xfinity Series races. And dominated in 2015, leading 183 of 200 laps at this track. So this is actually one of Austin Dillon's better tracks.
Yeah, look, he's not been terrible.
No.
I mean, he finished runner-up in the Clash, 1 spot above Kyle. And then the Daytona 500, he was second. He technically would have finished second in that race at the Daytona 500, at the Daytona 530. And he was 9th last week. So he's not been bad.
No.
And 50-1 is a good number, and especially they're starting to take notice because most races last year, and even some starting out this year, other than Daytona, he's used to be around the 75 to 100-1 type, and now he's at 50-1. So they're starting to take notice of that. So, yeah, he's not – him and Kyle have been working well together, and Austin even mentioned that him and Kyle's driving styles and things they look for in a car are very similar. So he can bounce those things off Kyle, and Kyle can bring, hey, this is my home track. This is what's worked well for me here. I mean, the proof's in the pudding, 5 straight top 6s. So this is what I feel. Here's what you feel.
Yes.
Let's put these together, and let's go out and try to win this race. And for 50-1,
that's the thing. It's like in a way similar to the Keselowski thing is that while I can potentially get, and I understand why Dylan's 50-1. It's not, he shouldn't, I get that. But hey, maybe this is going to be a breakout year for Dylan because of look at who he's partnering with. So you never know. But again, it is important for him to go out there and have a good race. If that's going to be the deal, he's got to put it up.
And sometimes you could, there's some players who, I know it's hard to compare stick and ball sports to racing, but you see in a stick and ball sport, sometimes it takes that one player to come to that team that elevates everybody up. And you almost just get that feeling that Kyle is that way to RCR. That insert Kyle and just look at the morale of this team. It's just, it's hard to explain. It just feels different. You just
especially after a win.
Yeah, RCR they used to not even really be on our radar. I mean, they went through a span of like 4 wins in 8 years. Like it's just, especially when Kevin Harvick left, like we never even looked at Austin Dillon this way, and now it's like, why not? I mean, Kyle clearly in 2 races is all it took him, point span races to win. Why can't Austin Dillon?
Yep.
So I would not be shocked if, again, we'd be kicking ourselves like he's 50-1 last week, now he's 20-1.
Yep.
Why did we not do it then? So yeah, it's definitely a risk this week.
So then we go to let's talk about Trackhouse, because I know you had a story on Trackhouse on your website.
Yep.
And why not? Now, Chastain, strong last week. Matter of fact, we talked about the live betting last week, and it was good, and it followed through again. I actually, since I already had Kyle, I had to decide between it was Hamlin and Chastain. And Hamlin was like about 3-1 at the time. and I think it was somewhere the second stage, and Chastain was about 5-1. And so I said, you know what? Hamlin, again, I know he doesn't have a great history at this track. He had never won, right, Fontana?
Yeah, over 30.
So I'm not going to go with that at that number, but I think I could try to, because all the other drivers that were up there I had already, except Hamlin and Chastain. So I said, you know what? Let me go with Chastain. And for a while there, he almost proved to be a good hedge. And now he comes to a track. Forget about the first. His first career races, his first 7, doesn't matter. Last year, second and third, leading 68 and 83. So that's over, 150 total laps. And he won this race, dominating in the Xfinity Series in 2018. So for me, he's a no-brainer, even at 8-1.
Yeah, and you look at Kansas last year, he was 7th in both races. So similar track, was good. He's coming off a 91 lap sled. And you look at the stages this year, we've had 4 of them, obviously 2 at each race. He's won 3 of them. He just is around the front. You go back to last year, and I think it's, 6 top 4s in the last 7 races or something like that. So just, to me, I feel like it's a bargain to get him for where we're getting him at. I mean, he should probably be 5 or 6-1, but for his
he doesn't
odds,
have the name recognition yet.
That's the difference. And it's just because of his name. And that's a better way to bet. Hey, they don't know his name real well, so they have him here. Where they know Kyle Busch's name, they'd have him here. It's probably a wiser bet if you don't think either of the Kyles are going to win. That probably should be your favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, the stats say. So, yeah, you can't go wrong with Chastain this week.
And then his teammate, once again, we're getting a driver at 50-1. That who's to say Suarez can have the type of season Chastain had last year. Considering the start Suarez has had so far. And then last year, if you take a look at the March race, he had the wreck. He was taken out by Briscoe. And then in the race in October, he led 31 laps. So, yeah. And he also raced 3 Xfinity Series races in his career, all top 10s, 2 top 5s, and a runner-up.
And he was 3rd in both stages of the fall race last year. So he was up front. And he's got 2 top 10 finishes this season. There's not many of them drivers that can say that. Trackhouse can with both. So you just feel the momentum. Again, we talked about momentum with Kyle Busch. You just got to feel Kyle and the 2 Trackhouse cars are probably overall, the grand scheme of things, the 3 best cars right now. And you're going to a track that typically rewards the better cars win. This is granted an overall encompass of things. With the last 14 Cup races in Vegas, 12 of them have been won by a series champion. The only 2 not was Denny Hamlin. So Vegas seems to reward guys that championship frontrunners. These are your 3 right now. The last non-team to win, as far as the big camps, the Penske, Stewart-Haas, Hendricks, JGR, was Roush Fenway and Ganassi. They're the last 2. Well, Ganassi was bought by Trackhouse. Kurt Busch won the 2020 fall race there, and a Ganassi car. So it just kind of adds up that it just feels like a Trackhouse win is coming this weekend. And for some reason, Suarez is 50-1.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Come on. I put a couple of bucks on Dillon, and I did the same thing on Suarez.
Yep, you could arguably say these are the top 2 teams right now, and that shows the parity. And strike while the iron's hot.
Also, Chevy, you have JTG Racing with Stenhouse coming off the win. We talked about him earlier. He has a win in the Xfinity Series here in 2012. And he did finish 3rd just a few years ago in 2020, leading 30 laps. So he does have some decent memories here compared to other tracks, which he's been just awful at over his career. And again, we don't know. But based on this first couple of races, because we kind of talked about it last year, because I even picked him up for a little bit on my fantasy team. He started to look like, okay, they turn in the corner, and then just didn't happen. So maybe there's something there now. Who knows? And he's 100-1.
Yeah, you throw a couple bucks his way and you're profitable. And the thing with him and Kyle, since they're the only 2 with wins, that I'm curious this weekend, is we saw it the last few years in Vegas. There's been a caution late, and you can gamble on either no tires or 2 tires.
Okay.
If I were in their standpoint, it doesn't do good to change 4. Why would you want to be in the back? When do you pit in that final stage, and do you go just fuel only and get the track position? And we've seen they have high-pass cars. Can they steal a win that way? So I have this feeling if it comes, even if they're 10th or 11th and caution flies, there's 15 to go, they'll be shocked they're restarting on the front row if they just take fuel only.
There you go.
What do they have to lose? They've already got to win. So I would not be shocked if something like that happens. And I went and looked, all three of Stenhouse's wins, granted, Daytona and Talladega, have all come in overtime.
All right.
Vegas, late race Fox can get in overtime. Yeah. So yeah,
I mean, the only reason I didn't take him, even though he's only $1 bet, is just because of the fact that I put $1 or a couple of bucks on other guys, and it's just still going to be a little bit hard for me to believe he's going to win 2 out of 3 races. That's all.
Exactly. Same. And plus our $100 limit that we, it's just like that dollar I needed for the Kyles. I was kind of thin on profits on this. But yeah, if you could go a longer shot package and you might have a winner there too and come out profitable.
Switching to Ford for a bit. RFK, we talked about Keselowski and Buescher. Keselowski 50-1, Buescher 80-1. So just like Dillon and Suarez, I threw a couple of bucks on Keselowski. Didn't show any signs this team last year here at this track, so there's nothing to go on. All you can go on with Keselowski is he's had a very successful Cup career here with Penske, with 8 top 5s and 3 wins in 17 races. So if he, again, has truly turned the corner with this team, then why not grab him while you can at 50-1?
Yeah. Because especially if he qualifies decent, I doubt that number stays 50-1 on Sunday. I think they probably like, well, look, he just finished the top 10. He's good at this track. That number might drop to 20 or 30-1 come race day when he can double it right now. So it's a wise choice. I mean, since 2013 when Penske switched to Ford, and granted he's a Ford team now, he said he's had a top 10 in all but 3 races at Vegas. So he knows how to get it done there. The track hasn't changed. It's up to car performance at this point. And like I said in Daytona, I think it was Hamlin said the Fords are going to be stronger on the intermediate or bigger tracks. And so far, I think we've seen that. Granted, the Chevy won last week, but Ford just generally, Logano was up front, Blaney was up front, Harvick looked good. They seem fast. So you're getting a Ford at 50-1.
And speaking about Toyota, we talked about Wallace and Reddick. It hasn't gotten off to a good start so far for Reddick. So that's, again, I want to see, the odds are nice, but and you mentioned, last year, 6th, led 32 laps from the pole, 3 straight top 10s, won the race in the Xfinity Series in 2019. But even though I'm getting good odds and all of that, I have to see something positive out of Reddick with this new team first. And for Wallace, though, a little bit easier for me to put a couple of bucks on him because of the fact that he's 40-1. And he had the big incident, as we will recall, with Larson last year, the last time we raced here. And it was a mind blower because he was having a good race. He led 29 laps, so everything was going well. He blew a gasket. And you know what? That's kind of also a little bit of a reason why I made it easier for me to pass on Kyle Larson this week, was because it's different at 40-1 to 7-1 to go with one of the 2 drivers that is coming off the last time they raced here, a big incident that you just don't know what's going to happen. Even if nothing does happen, it's got to be on their minds. So there might be a little bit of a distraction mentally, but I'd rather go ahead and take the chance with a 40-1 driver with that situation than, of course, a 7-1. So I thought, I kind of thought Wallace was a pretty much of a no-brainer at 40-1 as long as, he doesn't have any. Maybe he can use this, if anything, as a positive based on what happened last year.
Yeah, you got to look. He won the first stage of that race. He was leading. He was battling for the lead and lost his temper. But I said Vegas is like Kansas. Wallace won Kansas fall race last year. The car, though, that he won in is now where Tyler Reddick is driving.
Yeah.
And that car won both Kansas races last year. The 45 with Kurt Busch won Kansas spring race.
There you go.
The 45 with Bubba Wallace won the Kansas fall race. And people are like, probably, why do you keep talking about Kansas and this is Vegas? Those are very similar tracks. As I said, naturally, as we just talked about, the stats have correlated to both. Reddick was good in his own right at those tracks, and now he's getting the car. So I
So
thought
he's
for
getting
his
a car
odds,
that's won 2 straight at
in
Kansas.
Kansas, yes, similar. And this car also was good at Vegas. I believe Kurt Busch had a top 10, if I'm not mistaken, in the Vegas race. Yeah, the car won, but Kurt Busch was top 10 in Vegas last year, the spring race. Naturally, the fall race, Bubba was driving it and lost his cool. So it's a good car. Toyotas, that's why, I know we'll talk more when we get to the Gibbs guys, but in the Vegas race last year, it shows Bowman won, and it shows Hendrick guys are towards the front. Toyota led 107 of the 274 laps, 39% that day. In Kansas, the first race, they led 64% of that race. In Kansas 2, they led 94 of 267 laps and finished 1, 2, 3, 5. So Toyota actually was pretty good on these mile-and-a-half tracks last year, and you're getting good odds for them. So I kind of naturally, when we get to the Gibbs guys to pick,
Yes,
kind of went heavy with the Toyotas just because of what last year showed.
Yeah, makes sense.
And Reddick was 8-1 last year, and now you're getting them a
15.
car that's capable. You're kind of double the odds. So, 2311, I would not be shocked. You could go with JTG again. JTG RCR 2311 could be your first 3 winners for Trackhouse. So
it could happen. Hey, you know what? Absolutely. And I wish Reddick, just for me, I just wish he had some positive momentum coming in here.
That's his only thing is, and I talked about this last year. There's some races, even though you have the state circle, like I need to be good here. I feel like we talked about this. I think it was Truex a lot of times last year. He just needs a top 5.
Yeah.
He just needs a top 10. He doesn't need to swing for the fences. No. He knows what he can do here. That sometimes that might make him more of a better fantasy play than an outright betting play. But for 15-1 where he is now, that's why I take him. But he's got to get a top 10. I mean, his first 2 weeks, his finishes 39th and 34th. He's DNF'd in 4 of his last 5 races. If you go back to last year.
Yeah, that's the thing. You do have to go back to last year too. That was not a good end of a season.
No. He's reeling right now. So
he needs something.
He's got to. I use the quote for basketball. Sometimes you just have to see the ball go through the hoop.
That's true.
That's kind of where he's at right now. And kind of Bubba the same way. I mean, we had high expectations for him entering this year, and his finishes are 20th and 30th. So it's not like he's entering with much momentum either. He's got to.
Yeah. What happened last week?
He had an electrical. Something happened at the end.
Oh, okay.
He had a pit. He pulled behind the wall. I think it was an electric. Something happened.
He was what? Would he have finished in the top 20?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I've got it right.
So
here.
he just didn't have a good car last week.
No, he was. Well, he probably would have. I take that back. He was 12th in the first stage and 15th in stage 2.
So he had a top 20 car, top 15 car.
Yeah, at top 15 at best. So not good enough to be a top 10. So that's.
And by the way, if it wasn't for that late wreck at the Daytona 500,
he wouldn't.
He was coming hard with Kyle.
Yep. So it's again, he's another one that you just kind of probably have to see the ball go in. So top 10s will be good days for him. They have a chance to win, but you kind of dial it back a little bit and just kind of like, all right, let's get our season going.
At least you got good odds.
Yep, you're getting good odds for him to risk it right now.
Hendrick, you have Larson. We talked about him at 7-1, and remember he lost to Bowman in overtime in the race in March. This race, so we know he's strong there. His last 4, if you throw out the wreck last year in this race, in the October race, 2nd, 10th, and 1st, leading over 200 combined laps. Also very strong in the Xfinity Series with a win in 2018. And a couple other really good finishes, including a runner-up. So this is a good track for Larson. And then you take a look at his teammates. Elliott's 10-1, Byron's 12-1, and Bowman is 20-1. Byron, I would have taken at 16 or 18-1. I am not taking him at 12-1. Elliott has just been, he's been okay here. No, the funny thing is with Elliott, his 3 best lap races here. Led 73, finished 22nd. Led 70, finished 26th. Led 22, finished 13th. So I don't know what that's about, but it's not good. And Bowman is the defending champ. You know, he typically, as he does, stole the race late in this race. Didn't race in the fall because of the injury, as we know. And overall, he's been good here. 5 top 15s in his last 7, with 3 top 10s, 2 top 5s, and a win. Plus, you are at least getting 20 to 1.
Yeah, Bowman's the play here out of those. Like you said, I mean, Elliott, 6 finishes at 21st or worse there. Kansas last year, he was 29th and 11th. Coming off of 21st in the fall race, they just need to get a top 10. They said Byron, I don't get the 12 to 1. Just seems way too steep for me.
I have no idea.
Bowman though, why not? With 3 of his last 5 Vegas starts, he's had a top 6. Like you said, he won. Kansas last year, 9th in the spring race, 4th in the fall. He led over 100 laps in that fall race. So he's the smart play just because his odds are 20 to 1. To me, I think him and Byron probably should be flipped. But again, I think they're using the name recognition. And we talked about Larson earlier. I mean, Kansas last year too, he was 2nd and 8th in the 2 races. So you kind of know what you're getting out of there. The 2 smart plays, Larson and Bowman, I'd fade the other 2.
Yeah, Byron, I would, again, if you take a look at it, he was in contention last year, but not really to win, but he was hanging around the top 5 and actually finished 5th in one of the races. And he has 2 top 10s in his last 2 March races, for whatever that's worth, compared to the October races. So moving on, next up, let's talk about another couple of Chevy teams. What about Spire? Not Ty Dillon, but Corey LaJoie.
Yeah,
now, is this just a fluky result after the timing because of Daytona, and we know what Daytona can do to Corey LaJoie, or is there something there? And I guess we're going to find out this week, because Corey LaJoie, historically, outside of the plate tracks or the former plate tracks, now the super speedways, outside of those, not very good at all.
No, I was wondering how much the starting spot last week played a role because he was
good
12th,
point.
Because from that Daytona finish. So this week with qualifying, let's see where he stacks up, and then we'll see if that changes anything. Do I think he'll win? No. I mean,
by the way, he's 500 to 1.
Yeah, it's granted. I mean, hey, you're getting a guy that, as I just said, he got another top 15. He was 14th last week, but just doesn't.
Well, if he qualifies in the top 15, then maybe he's a good fantasy play.
No, he might be. Now, if you're some of those people in survivor leagues or stuff like that, that would be a wise play because he'll probably bring the car home in one piece. He's not going to be reckless with it. Not a bad option. Ty Dillon, on the other hand, had a terrible start of this season. Yeah, so Corey LaJoie is that team, and I'd just be curious what he can do on Sunday. Top 20, I think a top 15, then it's really going to turn some heads because, look, all it's going to take is stealing a win somewhere, and he's in. He's been running good enough. It's
got 3 more chances, maybe 4 more with Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta, remember how good he ran there. Yeah. So last year, you never know with him, but I'm curious if he can get in the top 15. I think that'd be compelling for 3 straight to start the year off with.
Now, Legacy's interesting. Matter of fact, I almost put money on both drivers. It would have just been a buck or two with Gregson. With Jones, it was a couple of bucks, and that is because he's 40 to 1. He was 8th in October. He's got 4 top 10s total. I'm not totally. This isn't like a really good track for Jones, where I'm a lot more confident. But I just figured a couple of bucks on a driver that's had some success here, and that we all kind of feel could have a good season, so why not? Gregson's the interesting one. Now, speaking of a good fantasy driver, 80 to 1, and look, he's not going to win more than likely, I get that, but he was 11th in October, and maybe we shouldn't be surprised, because in 8 starts in the Xfinity Series, he has 8 top 10s, 7 top 5s, 3 runner-ups. Last year, runner-up, leading a combined 139 laps and 11th in the Cup Series in October.
To me, seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Especially, like you said, too, yes, he's a rookie, but he raced the October race in Bowman's car. So he knows what a good car is supposed to feel like. Now, and last year was one of the first starts in that car, because this was shortly after Bowman got hurt. So now he's got a better feel. And Eric Jones last year was 8th in the fall race, so that's the teammate to Gragson. And he was in the top 5, if you remember, right? He was the reason the caution came out, which even caused the pit stops for Bowman to steal the win in the end. Because remember the Gibbs guys, Busch and Truex Jr. were 1-2 before that caution. I think Jones was 3rd or 4th. So yeah, Legacy's a strong sleeper. The only thing that concerned me with them is they also looked good early last year, and this year they don't. I just don't know. I can't pinpoint. Like Eric Jones was only 19th on Sunday, where last year he was qualified on the front row, top 3 the whole race.
So they need a definite top 15. If not, even a top 10 would be great.
They seem to have gone backwards, and they need to find a way to get back up. And this could, like 23-11, this could be their track. So I'm curious.
Gragson, there's no better stats than this for Gragson. There can't be.
And this is his home race too. He's a Vegas guy.
Well, there you go.
And you're getting it from 80
Put
to
a
1.
book on him.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. And they can go off strategy in the end. They could be the one that, like, hey, look, stay out or fuel only or too tired. Whatever that strategy may be, that's a prime candidate, and he could hold his own up front if he needs to.
I think we're going to close out the Chevys now with Colleague. You have AJ at 100 to 1, Haley at 150 to 1. AJ was also someone that I came close to putting a buck on, because if you look at it, he just like we mentioned with Gragson, he got to race last October in the Cup, finished 9th. In the last 2 years in the Xfinity Series, in 4 races, 3 top 10s, and he won a race in 2021, throwing a couple of poles and a combined 103 laps. For Haley, this has just been an okay track for him. Not bad, not great, but solid, okay for him. He led 16 laps in October, a couple of top 20s last year, also 4 top 10s in the Xfinity Series. But AJ's the one that if you wanted to put a buck on too, I'd be okay with.
Yeah, AJ and Gragson would be those are the 2 my longest of the long shots that I wanted.
Yes.
It's like, are they going to win? I don't know. I'll spend the money up top, but you never know. Like you said, I mean, that he knows how to win there. He just did it. So Haley I'd punt on, but Allmendinger and Gragson are 2 very strong sleepers in place this week.
All right, Toyota, Joe Gibbs. So we have Bell 12 to 1, Hamlin 10 to 1, Truex 12 to 1, Gibbs 80 to 1. And out of this group, you went ahead with Hamlin, Bell, and Truex, and I just went with Hamlin. I almost took Truex, but I just, as I said, I used the money a little bit more on both the top guys and on some long shots. We'll start with Hamlin, because Hamlin, in his last 4 top 5s and a win, with 341 laps led. That's 68 per race. He led 137 in his 221 win, his 2021 win in October that year. He was 5th last October, and then should have probably won the race. This race last March, as we know, when he had the little stick shift gear. What the hell am I doing? Am I a 4-year-old? Which totally eliminated his chance from winning that race. And he was excellent at Kansas last year.
Yeah, I mean, 4th and 2nd at Kansas, and you mentioned 4 top 5s his last time at Vegas.
He should be 10 to 1. I mean, that's a bargain.
That's what shocked me. He probably should be up there with Kyle in the 6 to 1 range.
Maybe.
But 10 to 1 is him and Chastain. Again, you talk about 2 sleepers on the other end of the extreme between Gragson and Allmendinger. Him and Chastain arguably should be 2 of your favorites, and they're not.
That's why I took them both.
Wise play for those 2. I mean, Hamlin's definitely a top 5 contender. He'd be a wise play to play if you could find a bet somewhere in the top 5, to finish the top 5. That would be one I would definitely wager on.
Now, and again, Bell and Truex, both at 12 to 1. Truex has a couple of wins. Matter of fact, 11th or better in 12 of his last 13 at this track, with 7 top 5s, a runner-up, and 2 wins. But the only thing I'm a little bit concerned with, he's led only 9 laps in his last 6 outings there. Bell, meanwhile, was 10th from the pole in March, leading 32 laps. He got loose, stage 2, running 4th. That kind of hurt his chances. And he's had a good run, too, in the Xfinity Series. The only thing with Bell for me is sort of like I was saying with a couple of these other drivers is I don't like the momentum that, the start of the season so far. I don't count Daytona, of course. He was never really in that race to win it. That was a lucky third. But last week, that was, I don't know. I just kind of just feel that I want to see something. I want to see some good Christopher Bell first. But I can completely see why you would take him and Truex. If you had to take one of the two, who would you go with?
Probably Truex, just because he's more proven, and he was second. He was battling the lead with Kyle at the end of this race last year when that caution came out, so he was there. In Kansas last year, he was 6th and 5th, respectively. So they're, again, around that top 5. Bell, you just never know what you're going to get with him. That's the only problem with him is he could be good. I mean, Kansas, he was 5th and 3rd, top 5 in both. In the fall race, he was 4th in stage 1 in Vegas, and he was kind of innocent bystander with the Wallace and Larson incident. He was up front and they wrecked into him, just minding his own business. So last week, he just minding his own business, caught up in that restart crash. So the luck factor, he just doesn't have it.
Yeah.
And is he going to turn it around? And you also got to look at, as my picture shows behind me, he was on the pole last year for this he's right there on the pole for this race. So you just don't know what you're going to get. He could be up front, but again, the pole factor, they never win there. And Truex just seems more
consistent,
reliable
yes.
at 12-1. Yeah.
And look, this is why I said at the very beginning, there are a lot of contenders to choose from.
Yep.
When we're saying, like, especially for me, I haven't picked even the ones that you have. That it's not that you don't like them. It's just that you just have so many ways you can go. But look, that's why we're trying to give you as much information as you want to use, whichever way you guys want to go out there, the viewers, because you're going to have your own opinion, obviously, yourself. And by all means, these are the drivers that we have mentioned, the Bells, the Truex that I haven't taken, and we're going to get to a few others. If you guys feel differently, go for it. And Gibbs, forget it at this point. He hasn't raced a Cup Series, even though he was very good in the Xfinity Series here, including a win. We just need to see something out of him that means that he's capable of racing with the Cup boys so far.
Yeah, because as you said, Kyle and his dealings there, and that's his car. But and Gibbs was in this race, in the fall race, in the 23 car when Bubba moved over to replace Busch. So he like Gragson his race here, but he didn't have the success Gragson had. So I just, like you said, I got to see more out of him. Do I think he's going to go out and win the 3rd race of the year? I mean, it'd be a funny storyline that Kyle wins last week and his replacement wins this week, but I just don't see it. There's a reason he's 80-1.
Yes.
You're getting a better value with Gragson than you are the same odds as you would go with Gibbs.
All right, and then we've got Penske and the Wood brothers, these 4 drivers. So you took Logano, and that's it, and I took Blaney, and that's it. The difference for me was the odds with Logano. Again, Larson, Logano, I had to take out. I just can't take them all, or I just decided not to. But Blaney, look, this has actually been a good track for Blaney. 8 top 10s out of 13, 5 of those top 5s. He had the wreck in March, but that's because he got spun out by Keselowski, and he had a fine car that day, and he had issues with the tire going down, leading 39 laps in 2nd place with 40 to go. This was one of those bad luck races we were talking about with him last year. Between the pit stops and the bad luck, he could have easily won this race last year. And he also had 2 Xfinity Series races, both top 5s with a runner-up. So at 12-1, definitely taking Blaney. And that's why it's like I'll take Blaney over Logano with the 4-point difference. Logano, we know he won this race in the playoffs in October. Kind of stole that. He was always at the top, but kind of stole that late. 3 wins out of 19, over 500 laps, and 11 top 10s in his last 14, but only 2 top 10s in his last 5. So why did you take Logano over Blaney?
Just comfort. The same way if I had to choose between Truex and Bell.
Blaney's got to start finishing races and win. No, he's got to start winning races.
Yeah, I mean, last year he made a mistake, like he mentioned in turn 2. Like the tire, he's like, that was my fault. I was pushing too hard, and he had a car capable of winning, and Logano ended up pit strategy winning. And you just feel in these races, if you're just running up front, you just got to be there. All bets are off in the end. Like, we just like Stenhouse Jr. only led the final at 10 or 11 laps in Daytona. Kyle last week, he led 3 times for 27 laps. 21 of them, 21 to 27 were that final stint. You just kind of have to be there. And I trust Logano when it comes time to be there. We'll just do that, be there. Blaney, it's either him or his pit crew. Somebody seems to screw it up at the end. So I just want to see him actually put a whole race together. Where maybe it happened Sunday. Logano's more proven.
Well, look, he got who knocked him out last week? I forget who it was, but he had to.
Blaney?
Yes.
Yeah, he was in that wreck. Yeah. He was in that restart wreck. That again wasn't his doing. He just happened to be there.
Yes.
And it's just there. He just something always happens to him. And I just want to see him consistently not have something, and then I'll jump back on that train because he's got the talent, yeah. He's got the car that's capable of it. He just has to do it.
Well, and the thing is as soon as it happens, then watch out.
Yeah, because if it happens this week, I kind of looked ahead to next week. So I always usually plan a week ahead too. I think he's going to be my outright favorite next week at Phoenix. He's that good there, and he led over 100 laps. I'm pretty sure in both Phoenix races last year. The only reason he didn't win the spring one was another pit stop. And the fall one is because he didn't want to pass Logano to risk the chance. He finished second. So he could win this week, and I wouldn't be shocked if he won next week. So, yeah, grab him the number while you can, especially the futures, because could a lot change there here pretty soon with him.
Cindric 80-1, Burton 250-1. Burton 4 top 10s and 4 Xfinity Series races. Cindric 5 top 10s, 3 top 5s, and 8 Xfinity Series races. And solid in his last 4, 4th, 6th, and 2nd. But not all that great as a rookie last year. Cindric definitely needs to have a solid run to get his confidence going this season.
Yeah, and I just look at, too, we talked about this earlier in the show, and all the past champions winning this, and out of the last 26 Vegas races in general, so that's, 13 years worth, 23 of them were won by a past champion, somebody's a champion. I just don't see a second-year driver just all of a sudden jumping into that. Yeah. Especially with all these guys who are mentioned above, that between the Toyotas and you got your longer shot sleepers, and I just feel like there's better choices out there than those two. And Burton, for those odds, it doesn't hurt to throw $1 his way because you never know. Benedetto did good in that car, but again, you also got to look at that's a different car than we're running right now too. So
he needs another top 15 this week.
Really. He does. It was a solid day for him last week to get 15th for his second year. So just continually building that momentum for him.
And then the final Fords, the Stewart-Haas Fords, you got Harvick at 20-1, Briscoe 40-1, Priest 60-1, and Almirola 80-1. Harvick, once again, I guess, let's see. Actually, did we actually not take both of us, not take Harvick?
I don't think so.
No, we didn't.
I didn't trust him.
It's the first time we haven't taken Harvick together in a while.
It was.
Yeah, because he's getting the good odds. But look, he hasn't led a lap in his last 5, so that's not good. He does have a couple of wins. But last year, 12th and 12th, nothing special. But in this group, we talked about it already. The dude is Briscoe. We talked about the 4th in October. He was leading the race with 16 laps to go in October, by the way. He's been 11th or better in 4 of 5 Xfinity races, including a 2020 sweep, leading 253 laps combined. So, yes, Ryan Briscoe is a major bargain at 40-1
Chase Briscoe.
Chase Briscoe, thank you.
There's
enough Ryans out there. We don't need another. Yeah.
Well, Ryan Briscoe is what used to be an IndyCar driver. Who Nicole Briscoe on SportsCenter, that's her husband.
Okay, there you go.
We'll put that there. But I did the same thing a lot. Yeah, 4th last time we talked about him. I mean, Briscoe is the no-brainer play here. Plus, he was 20-1 in the playoff race last year, so you're doubling the odds for him right now. Harvick, he was Mr. Vegas for a while. Three top 4 finishes in a 5-race span, but after 8th, 10th, 20th, 9th, 12th, just doesn't make sense. And then in Kansas, 15th and 36th last year. after getting a top 5 last week, you just got to feel that, again, he's another one that he just needs a top 5. But with the Toyotas, if they've got a pulse like they had last year, it's going to be hard for him to finish ahead of them.
Well, but the competition, again, is too tough this week
to
go ahead and roll the dice with Kevin Harvick this week. I mean, there's just too many other choices.
There is, because usually you get Harvick at 20-1, which it's a no-brainer.
And there's only 4 or 5 guys to worry about, yeah.
Yeah, but this week between the 23-11 cars and the Gibbs cars, granted we're going to punt on Gibbs, but that still leaves 5 Toyotas right there. And then you got the Hendrick cars. We talked about Bowman and Larson. There's 7. And then you've got Kyle. There's 8. And then you got your sleepers. I mean, you just do the math. It's like, well, Harvick would be lucky to get it. Really, where he's finished at is about where he should finish at on Sunday. So,
well, and let's remember, as we said in the beginning, though, Ford has won 5 of the last 10. Chevy's won 3 out of the last 5.
Yep.
So, again, more reason for there to be uncertainty on who the heck is going to wind up winning this race.
Which is why, if you could find a good bet out there, because a lot of sports books will have this closer to the weekend, which manufacturer is going to win.
Okay.
You're going to get, because of those stats, better odds for Toyota, naturally, because you'd probably think of them as not potential to win. But as I said, well, I'll say it again just in case I make this point. They led 107 to 274 laps in this race last year and were 1-2 before that fluke caution in the end. In Kansas 1, they led 171 out of 267 laps. They finished 1, 3, 4, 5, 6. Kansas 2, they led 94 to 267. They finished 1, 2, 3, 5. So they've proven they're probably the more consistent and more speed at these type of tracks. So if you look at, a lot of times, I bet you'll see Chevy or Ford will probably be like minus 110. The other one will probably be plus 110. And I bet Toyota's plus 200 or 300. That's probably the third of the third.
Okay.
3 out of 3. I would probably bet that a Toyota driver would win.
By the way, we'll close out last year in this race. Alex Bowman won the race, and nobody picked him. So we didn't make anything. I had Larson as he finished second. You had Larson, he finished second, and CJ had Larson, who finished second. So we all lost out in that overtimer to Bowman in this race last year. And in the South Point race, that one was easy for you, but for some reason you didn't take your championship driver, Joe Logano.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember what happened there, but.
Because he was reeling in it. Remember that? He was not running good entering that weekend. And I looked like, he's top 10 guy, but not a top 5 guy, and he turns out and wins. That's another reason why I took him. CJ won with him. Yeah, CJ took him.
12-1, Logano, and he put 35. That's when we had more money to spend. And he had 420 he made on Logano winning that race. So...
Wise play.
We'll find out what CJ's going with when he gives us his picks later in the week. Again, keep in mind, and it could be for next week as well, depending on CJ's schedule, but we will have the picks posted up on the website. So check it out, racereviewonline.net. And next week is Phoenix, so we'll get by that. Yeah. And then we will also, don't forget, if you're an IndyCar fan and an F1 fan, check out CJ's F1 report. He talks a little bit about the race in Bahrain and the season. That's been on the channel for a few days. And Eric is going to have a report on the IndyCar race coming up this week at St. Pete. So check that out. We'll have a link in the description area of this channel so you can check that out. And definitely check out everything regarding IndyCar and NASCAR over at racereviewonline.net. So Eric, appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thank you.